Episode 99. It's not quite 100 yet. That obviously comes after 99 for all you Sesame Street fans out there. But here we are at the Tectonic Takes podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Ivan Ornelas. With me today is Abram. Abram, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's a little bit hot today, but I'm pushing through. How about you?
Yeah, so the last few days in the San Francisco Bay Area has been quite warm. Even in San Francisco, usually is immune to these types of heat swellings. Not always, but sometimes. This was not one of those times. So I was definitely caught off guard Wednesday. For whatever reason, didn't check the weather before getting out. So I just assumed I would be fine wearing a North Face sweater. I was not fine wearing a North Face sweater. I was carrying that around for most of the day. So things are heating up here in the weather and as well as in Major League Soccer as the playoffs are approaching. Most teams left only have one game to play left in the regular season, and there's still a lot to determine. This is the pros and cons of having 29 teams and 18 playoff spots. So that does mean that almost every team left in Major League Soccer is still in it. We'll talk a little bit about one of the teams that isn't. I'm sure you are all aware who we're talking about anyway. But our team, the San Jose Earthquakes, are still very much in it, and we could have been done. We could have been celebrating playoff qualification in this podcast, and it looked like that could have been the case when we got off to that fast start. Jeremy Obobasi scoring the goal from Jackson Eel Cross. And let's start with there because that was by far the happiest moment of that game. Abram, what do you think about that goal?
Yeah, I didn't get to see the first half, so I did see that highlight on Twitter. It was really good build up, and that's a ball you don't really see from Jackson Yule too often to just go for it. And I honestly felt like it was a mistake from number 17 Tafari on Dallas, but I'm not complaining, and I'm glad that Bobasi got his goal because he's a player that's been kind of underestimated this season, and I'm happy to see him kind of prove the doubters wrong.
Yes, I think that he's definitely had a roller coaster of a season with the San Jose Earthquakes. He's been very important to us, and I believe now he's had three back-to-back seasons scoring 10 goals or more. So that kind of consistency, even in Major League Soccer, where the perception is, oh, yeah, any half decent striker is going to score goals for fun in this league with all these bad defenses. Maybe that might have been the case in yesteryear in Major League Soccer, but even though we're still in the landscape where most DP spots are invested in attacking threats, which kind of leaves the defensive situation a bit vulnerable for many teams, that doesn't mean that they're going to get away easily. And it hasn't been easy for Jeremy Obosi, yet he's still been able to contribute. Taking a look at the lineups for this game, Dallas had a 4-4-2, and many Dallas fans and many fans in general of teams that are still holdouts and persisting with 4-4-2s are kind of annoyed by 4-4-2s. Now we have a lot of teams across world soccer that you either go 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3, or any of the five in the back formations. But in this 4-4-2, Martin Paz, an underrated goalkeeper, started for Dallas. Their back line of Emma Tomasi, Sebastian Ubigaga, Nkosi Tafari, and Marco Farfan. They had Chula Vista native Paul Areola on the right, Alan Velasco, who has been on the Argentina radar a little bit more on the left, and then Paxton Pomykal and Iara Mendy in the midfield with Jader Obrian and Jesus Ferreira up top. Very formidable FC Dallas team. We knew it was going to be a tough game. Jesus Ferreira is a similar striker to Jeremy Bobosi in the sense that he gets a lot of criticism, but he's been very impressive for Major League Soccer. I believe he's the youngest MLS player to get to 40 goals the fastest, which I kind of repeated myself. The youngest implies the fastest, but you get the idea. So, what did you expect from this FC Dallas lineup? A few familiar names, of course, with some international players, but still a pretty strong team.
No, yeah, Dallas is a team that we can never really take too
Lightly.
lightly.
Yeah.
We've been defeated, very harshly by them in the past. So I'm never really keen to go to Dallas, and I never really expect to, get out of there with a result because it's a hard place to go. There's a lot of fans in the stadium, and it's super hot. And like we're complaining about the heat here, we don't even know what it's like over there.
Mhm.
Um, but no, it's a strong team, and uh, yeah, I guess that's all to say on that. But I'm glad that we managed to go for most of the match up against them. But
Right.
yeah,
We match up very well against this team. I feel like there's obviously not going to be a weaker team by any margins when these two face, but I think they're the right kind of test for this type of situation where San Jose Earthquakes needed to pass. Whether or not the draw of this nature merits a passing grade, if you're results based, you didn't lose, so I guess that's like by default maybe a C or C minus. But I think that it was an important test for this point of the season. And if you can't at least get a draw on the road against FC Dallas, given the situation the San Jose Earthquakes find themselves in, if they do make it to the playoffs, they have to find a way to draw against stronger teams than FC Dallas on the road if they're going to have any sort of success. Whether that mean winning a playoff series, and I think that's probably the furthest that a rational San Jose Earthquakes fans can even think of. I think most of us are probably just thinking, let's just get to the playoffs and we'll see what happens after that. And then some fans are also thinking, what will the playoffs accomplish? Because there seems to be a lot of weaknesses with the San Jose Earthquakes roster and the way they play. We'll touch on a bit more of that after we go through the lineup. So we had Daniel as well. He's been phenomenal. He's our goalkeeper. We had Acapo, Rodriguez, Beeson, Trauco, and Paul Marie. Paul Marie playing a very interesting role in the way they play as well as positionally on the field in this game. Jackson Yule and Carlos Grezzo in midfield. And then rounding out the attack, Matthew Hoppy, Christian Espinoza, and Jeremy Abobasi. So let's start with Paul Marie, because when the lineups came out, it looked like it could either be a five at the back with Paul Marie in that left wing back spot, or in likely Trauco playing the third center back, or it could have been Paul Marie in midfield or Paul Marie in the winger. Based on the gameplay, where do you think Paul Marie factored in?
so in the initial lineup graphic, Palmieri actually featured at the right wing back spot.
Hmm,
Uh, with a capo at center back. And
interesting.
I just know because that's the what I saw just now as I was looking at the highlights of the first half. Um, and I don't think it turned out that way. I think it turned out like you said the first time. I think Trauco was the third center back on the left side, and Marie was the left wing back. Um, so yeah, I don't know why they made that mistake on the graphic. Maybe it's Lucci just not wanting to disclose how the team's set up, and then they have to just go off of what they think is right. But yeah, it was a very interesting lineup. But yeah, it worked out. It worked out in the first 15 minutes, I guess.
Is it fair to say, after a season's worth of data with Paul Marie playing half the available outfield positions, he's our James Milner?
Um, I think James Milner is Palmieri.
Okay, there we go. I think that answers my question even more emphatically then. And more so than the personnel, because I feel like the players have been operating in what they've been asked to do very efficiently. They mentioned multiple times in the broadcast that San Jose Earthquakes went from conceding 69 goals, insert 69 joke here, last season, to now they're solid, respectable defense. And while that is the case, I feel like that defense didn't really show up in the second half. They conceded a goal in the second half, and they were very lucky not to concede a second goal. And I feel like a lot of that comes down to how Luchi Gonzalez approached the game. And I have a lot of respect for Luchi Gonzalez, But I think in this game against his former club, FC Dallas, of course, we got to get a little bit more perspective from Dallas fans during the game, whether it be from my interactions on Twitter or on the MLS subreddit, that they felt that their concerns and issues with Luchi Gonzalez from his time at FC Dallas were heightened through this game, the way that he had San Jose Earthquakes set up. And myself and the other Quakes writers and content creators, particularly from the Aftershock podcast with Alex Morgan, Jamin Moore, and Robert Jonas, they were critical in the post game about the way that Luchi Gonzalez set them up, the defensive substitutions, particularly the biggest one that sticks out for me is subbing in Jonathan Mensah for Christian Espinoza. Now, I understand there are cases where he would sub an attacking player out for a defensive player, but usually that attacking player is like your third or fourth choice attacker. It's not Christian Espinoza who's been responsible for so many of San Jose Earthquakes' goals this season. At least with Espinoza on the field, you have a chance to score a goal somehow. And maybe there's some fatigue. Maybe you think of resting minutes. But this is the second to last game of the season as well. This is where you need your best player on the field. The time for resting and rotating players in terms of rest, particularly your star players, that was 6 or 7 games ago at the latest. So it's tough. It's a lot of next day quarterbacking. It's a lot of hindsight 2020, but everyone sees this. The people who cover the game see this. The people that produce Quakes content here and other YouTube channels and other podcasts see this. The fans certainly see this. I'm sure Luchi Gonzalez sees this, but yet he insists on doing it anyway. I know there was a lot to unpack from there, but what were your thoughts, particularly on the second half, the decisions made?
Yeah, so I'm one of the people who kind of on the fence. I was doing a lot of research to try and form my opinion on what I think about this result, and also just the way, I guess, the philosophy that Lucian Gonzalez tends to have, where we're content with the tie, and I don't hate it when it's correcting the issue of always losing away from home. That is a positive in that respect. But this is such an important game, and it was so weird. I don't think anyone expected any of those substitutions. When Cade and Montero came in, they were not good. They didn't really have a very positive impact on the game, and so the next thing he decides to do is take off Espinosa for Mensah, and then also Abovasi for Jutsin, and he was just building a wall in front of the goal, and it didn't seem warranted at that time. It was he's really defending, and they are attacking. They're a good team, but that's super defensive, and we want to win. We're not just trying to not lose. We want to win. So it was very weird. That's the least I can say about that.
The options on the bench, not seeing Shakiris or Skane is the biggest red flag for me, because Skane is a much smaller sample size. He's bounced between this team, and he's has moments with Quakes 2. Quakes 2, of course, will be playing later tonight as we record this episode. We're really happy with them being among the last 8 standing in MLS Next Pro playoffs. So congratulations on their season so far, and may continue against a tough Colorado Rapids too. But Skane's development this season, it was uncertain at some points, but then when he was able to play, we saw him transition into a somewhat effective winger off the bench. And of course, Shakiris, we have seen that when he's played more often, he's able to create more and be more efficient in those tight spaces in midfield. And a lot of times the midfield was being lost in this game. We saw Carlos Grezo. He had a decent first half. He hit the post, and one of our followers on Twitter, we appreciate all your interactions and mentions, but I'm going to be very nitpicky with this. if you hit the post or crossbar, it's not a miss. It's a miss if it's off target. If you don't have any contact with the goal whatsoever. So I couldn't really be too harsh on Grazo because it did hit the crossbar. But it was just one of those Houdini nights for him where it felt like his absence in being effective in the midfield was there. And it was part of the reason why there's a few of those odd man rushes where our last line of defense was Tanner Beeson, and that was a nightmare as well sometimes. Not one of Tanner Beeson's best games by any means. So, yeah, we had other options on the bench we could have gone to try to win the game, and we get 5 substitutions. So either sub on Judson or Mensah, but I don't think we needed to sub on both when we did.
No, definitely. It was weird. Like I said, um, I didn't feel like Dallas was playing so attacking and were so threatening that we had to bring on two more defenders, and that's something that you do when you're ahead. If we had scored another goal and we're up 2-1, and then I wouldn't mind bringing on both of them. That would be fine. But we're chasing a game that we need to win. We're trying to get that last goal to push us into the playoffs and clinch. And I don't understand the reasoning. To be honest, it doesn't actually make sense. Like I understand that you don't want to lose and get eliminated, but it feels like Lucci was giving Dallas way more respect than they deserved on the day. Um,
And it's all
and
right
I
if
don't
you
understand why.
respect them during the press conference, but you got to play the game and see what happens, test them, and make them punish you for it if it doesn't go according to plan. At this point, there has to be a little bit more risk taking. I'm not saying be completely reckless. Sometimes the defense was a little reckless, but I don't think that because the defense was having issues that it excuses them playing it safe with the substitutions. I think that you can adjust it with one of those two substitutions, and then you also have to find a way to communicate during the field. Just because the biggest opportunity you have to influence the game as a manager during the game is through substitutions, that doesn't mean you don't get opportunities during like a dead ball situation, like a throw in or something. It's like talk to your captain, talk to whoever's nearby. It's like, hey, tell them to do this. Like there's still some opportunities there. Now, there's a reason why Lucha Gonzalez and the 20 other coaches in Major League Soccer have those positions, and we're talking in this Zoom chat. So we can't be too overly critical, but it is part of what we do here to analyze what goes on and to give a voice to a lot of the frustrated fans and to share how we feel and to also validate the feelings that we do get. That's a big part of why we've done this for 99 episodes. We enjoy this part of it. I do want to give a mention to a particular FC Dallas player that came off the bench. I know that it's something that's been talked about a lot throughout the season that FC Dallas fans know about. And we probably mentioned this the last time we faced FC Dallas, but still a remarkable story with Bernard Kamungo, the 21-year-old player from Tanzania, that he and his family lived in a refugee camp for being able to come to the United States. He settled in Abilene, Texas, and walked on for North Texas SC, which was FC Dallas's reserve side. Now they're MLS Next Pro side. And he was so impressive in the space of 2 years. Now he is an integral part of FC Dallas. And that's why we love soccer, hearing those stories there. And overall, ended up being 1-1. I think that was a fair result based on everything we watched, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think with the way we played, it ended up being a fair result. I don't think we had to necessarily do that. And I do also want to say I don't share the opinion that many Quakes fans do that we have to get rid of Lucci and that Lucci out, and
Oh, no, no, no.
that's
That's
a
way too reactive.
that's a huge over exaggeration over just disagreeing with the philosophy. We might have issues with going for a draw this game. We don't understand why. That's why we're frustrated. But there is a reason, and Lucia has gotten us this far to have a chance to be upset about not getting into the playoffs yet. And that's a huge up from where we were last season, where we weren't even thinking about playoffs,
Snapper's
and it
very
was
trigger happy when it comes to managers. And I felt the heat across all the soccer teams that I follow this season. Oakland Roots are not playing well right now, but the answer is not to let go of Noah Delgado there. He's been a big reason for Oakland Roots being relevant in the USL Championship. Roma got off to a slow start. Are we saying let's go uh, Jose Mourinho, we don't need you anymore? Hell no. Manchester United have had so many problems, but Eric Ten Hag is not one of them. And Chivas have had their issues as well. And it looked like we were going to lose our coach and our entire coaching staff. But thankfully, that's not the case because he is still the guy that got Chivas to the final in this last Apertura. So a lot of times the managers are the scapegoats. They do get blamed for a lot of these things. And Luchi Gonzalez does get deserve criticism, and he did get that criticism during the press conference. And I keep bringing that up because I feel like Luchi Gonzalez, he's been very mild mannered for the most part this season. And it's easy to be mild mannered when things are going well for most of the season. But I think there's a slight shift after the League's Cup. Gave him a pass for the League's Cup, I feel like, because we're up against Tigres and we're up against Timbers, and we had to go away the Timbers. So it was going to be a very realistic possibility we got bounced from that group. So, you know what? It happens. It was a tough draw. But I think whatever happened during that League's Cup, despite having ample time because of the early exit to rest and rejuvenate, that rest versus rust might have played a factor as well. And now here we are in the post League's Cup phase of the MLS season, and the Quakes have very rarely gotten out of second gear in many of these games. Part of it, you know, he might be involved there, but I think overall, the San Jose Earthquakes are a better team than they were last season. And I get it. The bar is low. It has been the last decade. That's the reality of San Jose Earthquakes. And as fans who have been following this team since 1996 when it began, or at the very least since, you know, the last 10, 15 years, it's frustrating. We have to still take into perspective and try to figure out what this team can be, what this ceiling is, because we're not going to achieve this ceiling this year. It's very unlikely, unless we catch fire, that there's going to make a deep playoff run. But still, you have to make the playoffs when the league is giving 18 spots out of a possible 29. That's the bare minimum. And even if we achieve the bare minimum, if we somehow miss out on that, then it's going to be a worse feeling than what we're feeling right now.
Yeah. So I right now I'm not saying Lucci out.
No.
And my people would, the criticism they would give me, saying, well, we're not last, so we have to give him his chance. My bar isn't not last. My bar is playoffs.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't make playoffs, then I will probably move over to that camp. Like we had a lot of upgrades in a lot of positions this season. You've had a lot of time. We've had a whole season, and one season isn't a lot of time, but I feel like it's enough time to get into the playoffs at least. When, like you said, the bar has been lowered for us to be able to make it in. So yeah, it's very frustrating, but
I'm not ready to overreact yet on Kate Cowell either. However, there's a very Kate Cowell-esque play that happened there, and it just resurfaced all my feelings on Kate Cowell's play this season. He dribbled past multiple guys, and it's like, this guy's really good, but still, you're making poor decisions. He lost the ball shortly after that, and we really need Kate Cowell to be productive. I think this team is a different team when Kate Cowell is productive. And we saw that production in spurts, but Kate Cowell is a system of having good players around him too, and he's reliant on them, perhaps overly reliant on them, whether it was with the U20s where he had the benefit of playing alongside Diego Luna. I think even removing our quick spice aside, we can agree that Diego Luna is the better player, the better prospect at this point in time. And like what is Kate Cowell has players around him like Christian Espinoza, makes every one of the Quakes better. And even Jeremy Abobasi, Paul Marie, Matthew Hoppe can combine their skills to get the best out of Kate Cowell. But ultimately, it's up to him to try to figure out what's been missing for him. Your thoughts on Cade Cowell?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Cade Cowell is a player that hugely is reliant, not reliant, but whether he plays good or not, it really depends on his mentality and
Mhm.
where he's at with his confidence in himself. And he fluctuates so much because of that, I feel like. And I don't know what it is that we need to do to make him feel that he can do it, or like that he shouldn't be afraid to fail, but he's not in that headspace right now, and it shows on the field when he's playing. He's kind of scared. He's not 100% sure, and so he second guesses himself, and that results in a lot of turnovers and missed passes that should be easy for anyone else. But um, it's really sad to see. But I would agree right now that Diego Luna doesn't. He can more rely on his superior technique and just like cultural like play, and doesn't have to have that burning sensation of like I am the best player on the field. He just like he could just do the basic stuff well, whereas Cade I feel like does lack a little bit in those basic departments because he may be not as developed technically.
Yeah, and
And
maybe
yeah, it
because
just comes out.
Diego Luna wasn't in that boat to get into that destined for failure Gold Cup roster this summer. K. Cal was the one that got that call. So Diego Luna got to distance himself away from that. Maybe it was a blessing in disguise. And even though San Jose Earthquakes isn't necessarily a big market MLS team, I feel like Real Salt Lake still gets even less attention than San Jose Earthquakes at times. So it's a, there's less pressure there, but at the same time, Real Salt Lake are a stronger team right now. Despite the fact that we beat them, I feel like Real Salt Lake are more well built for the playoffs. And I think that kind of transitions into now we can take a little bit of a step back from just a San Jose Earthquakes perspective and talk a little bit about how things are looking like for the league. On the East, we'll just touch on a few headlines here. FC Cincinnati have locked in the Supporter Shield. Orlando City, I think, also clinched number 2 overall, not just in the East, but in MLS as a whole. So that's good news for Orlando City there. And then with St. Louis, they have clinched the Western Conference. The biggest news right now, though, is DC United parting ways with Wayne Rooney and Inter Miami unable to qualify for the playoffs despite getting that midseason boost with Lionel Messi, Sergio Busquets, Jordi Alba. Uh, Obviously, they didn't count on Lionel Messi picking up an injury on Argentina duty. They've had to sit him out several games. And while they were able to win without Lionel Messi for a time, the results stopped coming their way, and a 1-0 loss to FC Cincinnati sealed their fate. This might be the last time we see Inter Miami not participate in a tournament that MLS has to offer, though. So it's a weird position right now for Inter Miami, but what do you make of where they're at right now, Abram?
It's a weird time, I think, for them. They are still transitioning, in my opinion. I mean, it's weird to say that after you bring in Messi, Busquets, and Alba, like this team isn't complete. Answer is no, they're not. They were a last place team before those pieces, and so everything around Busquets, Alba, and Messi, and Jose Martinez, uh, is not where it should be. There's a lot that still needs to be fixed. And you remember, Ivan, that first game before Messi came on in the 50th minute? They looked dreadful.
Yeah,
They
against
looked like
Brazil.
an abysmal team. And so you still have those guys. All of those players are still on that team. You just had Messi to make it better. And Messi's obviously going to have a huge impact on any team that he plays on, but in Miami have to move around some pieces and really move their, because the worst player on the roster is worse than the worst player on other teams rosters. They have to move that floor up to kind of not match obviously, but like get closer to the floor of Busquets, Alba, and Messi, and Jose Martinez and all those players.
We've seen enough from maybe some of the role players like Sergei Kristov, Robert Taylor, Drake Callender that, okay, sure, we can see them being a part of Inter Miami next season where we see them improve. But there's also other players like DeAndre Yedlin and Dixon Arroyo where like it could go either way with them. But if you were able to upgrade on them, sure, go for it. I think that there's a lot of incomplete data when assessing where Inter Miami is. And while they seemed like an unstoppable force in the League's Cup, maybe they're not ready to be an unstoppable force yet, full term. And that's probably for the best. And I think that's a more realistic expectation for them. They can be a really good MLS team, but even with the GOAT on their team, I think it's a good position for MLS to be in to see that they are still beatable and still beatable in the presence of other teams such as FC Cincinnati. And you can even look at Philadelphia Union last year. And by the way, Philadelphia Union could be losing Kai Wagner, arguably the best left back in MLS after this season. That these are examples of two teams, Philadelphia and FC Cincinnati, that built up their rosters through under the radar signings. They weren't really flashy, but they did a great job developing players, and they look like formidable opponents. Maybe not as much this year for the Philadelphia Union, even though they'll still be in the playoff mix, but certainly FC Cincinnati. When you look at them and you start to think maybe they can win the MLS Cup, I think that's a fair assessment of them as the Supporter Shield winners. And then with DC United and Wayne Rooney. Obviously, Wayne Rooney is a very accomplished player. He's had a tough time as a coach. He didn't have an easy time at Derby County and now at DC United. Similarly, he's not had the best of hands in either case, either side of the Atlantic. So, where do you see Wayne Rooney going next? You think he's going back to maybe a championship side in England, or maybe takes a break?
I think Wayne needs a break.
Mm-hmm.
I used to write for DC United for Area Sports Network, and it was a mess at that organization. I wrote when Hernan Losada was the coach, and I didn't think he was terrible, but something about that team is just like they don't feel like they're a successful franchise. And that might ring true for a lot of Quakes fans as well. We might have the same, frustration, but I don't know what it is. I think that he's going to need a break because playing in MLS is such a stressful league with the travel and especially managing DC United, who are very up and down team. I think that he's going to need a break before going back. Even and I don't even know if any team right now needs him. I might be wrong in that. I'm not too familiar with the coaching situations in Europe or the championship or the English leagues. But you know, uh, if I was him, I would take maybe 3 6 month break before trying to get another job.
Yeah, I think a break will be needed within the championship. I'm sure there's probably a couple of teams maybe falling toward the relegation battle there, trying to avoid League One that might give him a call, maybe like a Sheffield Wednesday. But at the same time, if I'm Wayne Rooney, do I want to go back to another Derby County type of job? Will another one be available to him? Would you be interested in going to the third division in League One? Would you be interested in another uh, North American based job? Probably not to that. I think he expressed that he wanted to go home. So that's fine too. I think that Wayne Rooney, he showed the type of person he is, very dedicated to this sport. DC United would not have been many Premier League stars' first choices for playing there, for managing, but yet he went there. I know it's a weird thing to say. Like the nation's capital isn't a premier destination for soccer. When you look at Paris, London, Madrid, all these nations' capitals and other leagues in Europe, the outlier at one point being Berlin in Germany, but now Union Berlin is starting to gain steam there too. But yeah, Wayne Rooney, he's not really like that kind of diva type, that stereotype of star players either. So it made sense for him as well. But I'm really thankful that he gave it a shot, and I'm really sorry it didn't work out for him. Now, looking at the remaining schedule here, so we have four loose ends, so to speak. Three matches to be played on Saturday, October 14th during the international break, and one match to be played on Wednesday, October 18th. Uh, on Saturday, October 14th, Nashville versus New England. Nashville doesn't have any threat to worry about regarding Montreal or DC United catching up to them. So Nashville could play it safe even at home, maybe probably get a draw. It's not going to be easy, even with New England having some drama there. So probably not the most interesting game there. Certainly the game in that time slot, 5:30 p.m. our time, that's going to be of more interest to us would be FC Dallas versus Colorado Rapids. The Rapids were able to beat Austin, but I think beating FC Dallas will be a stiffer test for them after this remade game during the weather delay. And then 7:30 p.m., we're going to be hoping our Royal Riot podcast friends can get a win against Carson there. And that should be an interesting one as well. And of course, with Inter Miami out of the picture, the game against Charlotte on Wednesday, October 18th, feels a little less interesting. Although Charlotte is still fighting for their playoff lives. A win against Inter Miami could put them up to 42 points, which would put them all the way up to 8 in front of Montreal. So, Charlotte still have a lot to play for there. Now we're going to focus more on the Western Conference here. And the matches that stand out for me during the 6 p.m. time slot, all the Western Conference games will be played at 6 p.m. on Saturday, October 21st. San Jose versus Austin, of course, is the big one for us. Portland versus Houston Dynamo. We got Sporting Kansas City versus Minnesota. That's going to be huge. Only one of them can pick up a maximum points. So that is very fortunate that they're matched up against each other, because had they played two separate fixtures, that could have been double trouble for the San Jose Earthquakes. And then lastly, LA Galaxy against FC Dallas. So let's think ahead to San Jose versus Austin. Austin are out of it. They are sitting at 38 points, so they cannot catch currently FC Dallas in ninth with 42 points. So big fall from grace from them. They made it to the Western Conference Finals last year, and now they've been really struggling for the last few months. They have a big fan presence. We've got to meet some of them through social media. Very passionate fan base, and surely a disappointing season for them. But what threat does Austin FC pose for San Jose Earthquakes going to this final match day?
Yeah, Austin is even though they're having a rough season, uh, they still have a lot of quality in their team.
Attacking
So
quality, especially.
right, I don't like to take them lightly. The thing that we do have in our advantage is that we have never ever lost to Austin. And they haven't been around for too long, but I'm still gonna hang on to that.
We played them enough times where it's starting to mean something.
Right. And like how we never won in Portland Stadium, they can hold on to that. We have Austin. They never beat us. So hopefully, I think that we can do it. I do think that we are probably the favorites to win at home in this match, and I don't want to jinx us. So definitely don't want to jinx us, but we do have the upper hand here, and it's going to be a really fun game, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to handle the pressure though. It's going to be a lot, but yeah.
Yeah. Here we are again in playoff purgatory. Might be the title of this episode here. San Jose Earthquakes, they need to play a lot better. And the good thing is, in terms of can we expect them to play better, it's been home and away. It's been a tale as old as time for San Jose Earthquakes that we can expect them to have a better, stronger performance at home. I do think that they've had enough credit in the bank that I'm not sure if we can sell out the stadium for this game, but I think the fans that do show up, they'll still be passionate, they'll still be invested in the game, and they'll still be backing this team. There's going to be a lot of passionate fans that want to see something from this team, and this will be a very important opportunity to get a result first and foremost. That's the most important thing, obviously. We've pushed off the scenarios like, okay, we need a win and something. We need a win and draw. We need a win and 2 draws. We've gotten the draws. Okay, now we need the win. We put it off to the very end. It's like, okay, this is the biggest chore we have to accomplish. I took out the trash. I did the dishes. I did the laundry. Okay, but now this is the big project here that finally we have to do. There's nothing left to do but to win. Do you want to see any lineup changes going into this game?
Um, I really enjoy when we play that three at the back or five at the back, however you want to phrase
Mm-hmm.
it. I think it really changes our dynamic, and I think that we have really good players to do it. I
They've
think a
been more
combo
suited
and,
for
and
that rather than the 4-2-3-1, at least in post League's Cup, right?
I really wouldn't know, but
But like
I
based on the
just
eye test, I feel like
yeah, on
when
the
we
eye
see them in the
test.
4-2-3-1, it's just not helping out when we have those midfield struggles. I feel like we get overrun.
No, I totally agree. I think that the results are there. I don't think we've lost with a 3-5-2 or 3-4-3, however you want to see it. Um, I, I could be wrong in that, but it seems to have gone well so far. So I would like to see us do it again just to shake it up, and it makes us play really exciting football. We didn't see it for most of the game against Dallas. I think we switched back to be more defensive, but if we can stay uh, on the front foot and continue attacking and be threatening, then it's going to be a hell of a match to watch with everything that's on the line. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting match.
Right. I regrettably won't be at this game because that day lines up with my fiance Nicole's bridal party. And while it's not officially my bachelor party that day, a lot of the partners of the invitees to Nicole's bridal party will be doing something smaller at my house, or formerly my house in Livermore, because now I have my own place in Castro Valley. So my presence will be requested there. Of course, it's a very important time for me. We're looking at about a month and 10 days, exactly 1 month and 10 days from my wedding as well. So rightfully so, that will pull my attention away from this podcast. I'm very fortunate that things have lined up the way it did, so that I do get a chance. You get a chance to celebrate the 100th episode milestone with you all here. Hopefully, we will be in better spirits than we will be. We definitely will be. We won't know, of course, our ultimate fate in terms of San Jose Earthquakes playoffs, but there will be a lot of opportunities to reflect the past 3 years that have happened. And it feels like longer for me because being at the start of this, the very first episode, I remember I recorded alone. Like Fabi didn't join until like episode 3 or 4. And then came Abel, then Abram, and Saz, and then Devin, and so on and so forth. We've had some other past co-hosts, such as Will, that he was there at the beginning, and then we went our separate ways. Things are really going really well, so I've contact with Will, but it's just life happens. Um, will you be at the game, Abram?
Um, I'm not sure yet. I really want to, but there's a specific plans that I might have. Um, I'm not going to tell you guys where I'm going to be, but yeah, we'll have to see. I will let people know in the Discord and on Twitter if I'm there. Maybe I can you can pass the baton to me and I can set up a meetup at the last game, but we'll see. Not sure yet.
Right. One thing for sure that I will be doing before that game, even though the playoffs itself were very painful, Vancouver Whitecaps saved up all their goals for that moment against us. In terms of qualifying for the playoffs, providing some positive karma, you gotta watch that 3-2 game against Minnesota United, because it's going to prepare me for the chaos and the stress levels that I'll probably endure when I watch that game, either from afar or in highlights. But it will also provide some really good and positive energy that is sorely needed right now. Rightfully so, San Jose Earthquakes fans have earned the right to be pessimistic, but we still have a chance. We still got to get that positive vibes going and continue to support this team, as I know you all have done every step of the way and will continue to do so. And yeah, so all that's left to do now is wrap things up here. Any other final thoughts before we say goodbye for today?
No, I think we've covered a lot. The game wasn't that eventful, so there's not much
Right,
to cover. But yeah, I had fun. I'm glad you're back. It's been a while since
right.
you and me have been able to be
Two
here. So yeah,
episodes,
I'm happy
yeah.
you're back.
Even if it's only been 2 episodes, I know that even that feels like a big absence. And it's the benefits of having the deep roster that we have, you, me, Devin, and then when Saz, Fabi, and Abel can come, they spell us too. But I'm really looking forward to having 5 of the 6 of us here. So the plans have shifted a little bit. We obviously want all 6 of us to be here for the 100th episode milestone. Abel has been doing a internship turned job opportunity as part of NBC, working with Carlos Eustace. And of course, that lines up with one of his opportunities. So Abel will not be with us, but I'm sure he'll prepare something or relay a message for us to include in the 100th episode. Favi, Saz will be making their long anticipated returns to the podcast. Their personalities are infectious. We look forward to talking to them. And of course, I look forward to talking to Devin again for the first time in 3-ish episodes, too. And it's going to be awesome. We have a lot of people to thank, with a lot of memories to reminisce on, a lot of life journeys that have happened over the past 3 years for us. And San Jose Earthquakes, of course, has changed a lot in 3 years as well. Soccer has changed a lot. Major League Soccer has changed. So it's going to be a fun episode. It's going to be unstructured. It's going to be celebratory. And it's going to be a memorable milestone. So thank you for those of you who have watched us today, whether you've been with us from the beginning, whether you've just heard of us recently, and for the fans we have yet to interact with, we're really thankful to have interacted with you and for you to be a part of this experience. And that's all for now. Go Quakes.